Chapter 1. Stepfamily or not, I wasn't going to let anyone cheat me, I thought firmly, as I trudged along the snow-covered forest road. My stepfamily's carriage had long disappeared from sight, heading toward the royal castle far ahead. I had no idea how far it still was. The tall, snow-capped trees surrounded me on all sides, blocking any view of the castle. Even when the road stretched straight ahead, it seemed endless, covered in ice and snow with no sign of the journey's end. The castle was just a tiny dot on a distant hill, almost lost among the softly falling snowflakes. Kodiak, my loyal dog, dashed through the snowbanks, his white fur blending perfectly with the winter landscape. He leapt at the falling snowflakes, barking and spinning in delight. Occasionally, he'd stop to look back at me, his tongue hanging out and his face lighting up with a playful grin. "Good boy, Cody," I called out, and the moment I spoke, he darted off again, bounding joyfully through the snow. His energy brought a small smile to my face, even though my heart felt heavy. At least one of us was enjoying this bitter journey. My father had passed away only a month ago, and his absence still felt unreal. My stepmother, Valencia, wasted no time taking over his estate, claiming his wealth and hiding his will, which I knew named me as the rightful heir. She had taken full control in less than a day. Worse, last week, she had closed the school my father and I had worked so hard to establish, a sanctuary for young mages denied a proper education. She had dismissed the students without remorse, leaving me to face their tearful, heartbroken faces as they returned to lives filled with prejudice and hardship. I clenched my fists as anger simmered in my chest. Valencia believed she could run from her responsibilities by taking her daughters, Valia and Vanessa, to the castle to compete for the prince's hand in marriage. But she was mistaken. I wouldn't let her destroy everything my father and I had worked for. Looking back, I couldn't believe I had been so foolish. When Valencia had invited me to join them on their trip to the castle, I had agreed, thinking it was an opportunity to reason with her. I hoped to convince her to reopen the school and reveal the will's location so I could restore what she had ruined. Foolishly, I hadn't packed anything except a spare dress, expecting to return home within a day. I should have known better. Valencia's behavior had been unusually agreeable, especially when she allowed Kodiak to accompany me without complaint. Her plan became clear when the carriage stopped in the forest so Kodiak could stretch his legs. As I let him run for a moment, the carriage suddenly took off without me. I ran after it, calling out, but the sound of Valencia's mocking laughter echoed in my ears as the wheels vanished down the icy road. Now, as I trudged through the snow, my stepsister's ambitions came to mind. Valia and Vanessa were eager to win Prince Stephen's heart and secure a future filled with wealth and luxury. They weren't alone. Many young women had rushed past me in decorated sleighs, their laughter filling the cold air as they dreamed of becoming queen. I, however, had no interest in such a life. My only goal was to claim my rightful inheritance and reopen the school to continue helping young mages. I picked up a handful of snow, shaped it into a ball, and threw it for Kodiak. He dashed after it, leaping into the air and snapping it in his jaws, scattering snowflakes around him. "Good boy," I praised, throwing another snowball to keep him busy. The cold was biting and my feet felt frozen, but the memory of Valencia's betrayal fueled my determination. As the sun began to set, the road grew quieter. None of the passing sleighs stopped to help me, even when I waved. My dress and cloak became soaked from trudging through the deep snow, and the castle still seemed impossibly far away. The glow of the sun disappeared behind the trees, leaving me in the growing darkness of the forest. The cold night brought an eerie stillness, broken only by the distant howls of wolves. I wrapped my cloak tighter around me, shivering as Kodiak's ears perked up. His body tensed, and he growled softly, staring into the shadowy trees. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "Stay close, Cody," I whispered, picking up a branch from the ground. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was better than nothing. My heart pounded as two glowing eyes appeared at the edge of the forest. A massive wolf stepped into view, its fur blending with the gray shadows of the trees. Its piercing eyes locked onto me with a predatory hunger. Before I could react, Kodiak lunged forward, growling fiercely. "No!" I screamed, running after him. But the wolf and Kodiak were already tangled in a vicious fight. Teeth snapped, fur flew, and their growls filled the night air. Tears streamed down my face as I watched helplessly. I clutched the branch, unsure whether to throw it. What if I hit Kodiak by mistake? My breath came in short gasps as panic gripped me. Suddenly, a jingling sound came from behind me, but I couldn't focus on anything except the fight before me. Out of nowhere, a flurry of ice shot past me, striking the wolf. It yelped and stumbled back, allowing Kodiak to retreat toward me. Blood stained the snow around him, and he whimpered as I knelt to comfort him. "You'll be okay, Cody," I whispered, my hands trembling as I pressed against his wound. The swirling snow grew stronger, forming a barrier between us and the wolf. I could barely see through the storm of ice and snow. When the flurry finally calmed, a figure emerged, holding a lantern. He had white hair sticking out from under his cap and electric blue eyes that glowed in the light. "Are you hurt?" he asked, stepping closer. Behind him, a team of sled dogs stood at attention, watching the wolf disappear into the forest. I shook my head, unable to speak, still clutching Kodiak as the stranger knelt beside me. "No, but my dog is. Please, let me look." The man quickly knelt down and began checking Kodiak, parting the dog's fur and pulling medical supplies from the bag he carried. My heart raced in my chest, and I knelt beside him, my throat tightening as I watched. If Kodiak died, I would never forgive my stepmother. There was a large wound on Kodiak's side, and his fur was covered with blood. I gently held his big head in my lap, stroking his ears and neck while the man worked on him for several minutes, going back to his sled for more supplies when needed. "You're going to be fine," I kept whispering to Kodiak, hoping my words would help. The man's sled dogs stopped watching the wolf's direction and began playing and barking at each other. I continued to stroke Kodiak's head as the man finished tying the bandages. "I've done what I can, but we need to get him to a doctor. Do you live far?" "At Frostwood Estate, in Evergreen. It's almost a day's journey." "I know a place that's closer. My name's Jack." "Noel!" I offered my hand to shake his. "I don't know how to thank you." Jack gave me a suspicious look before taking my hand. He shook it once, then quickly let go and turned away. I crouched down, trying to lift Kodiak into my arms, but Jack beat me to it. "Get in," he told me. "I've got him." "He probably weighs more than you anyway." "What's his name?" "Kodiak!" The sled was small and cramped, but by squeezing together and laying Kodiak across both of us, we managed to fit. "Mush!" Jack shouted, and his dogs immediately stopped barking and charged forward, pulling the sled toward the castle. I held Kodiak's head in my lap, watching the blood stain the bandages as he whimpered. What would happen to him? "Why were you out so late? Alone?" Jack asked. "I was trying to get to the castle." "Going to compete in the Prince's Bride Ball?" "No!" My stepfamily took something of mine, and I intend to get it back. Jack didn't ask any more questions. About 20 minutes later, we arrived in a small village. Jack stopped the sled next to one of the shops. The windows were dark, but Jack quickly got out and pounded on the door. "Beryl, open up!" Jack returned to the sled, carefully lifting Kodiak into his arms, then began kicking at the door with his foot, making so much noise that I looked around nervously, afraid the villagers might wake up and throw something at us. I patted Kodiak's head as he whimpered. "I'm coming! I'm coming!" a man grumbled from inside. I heard heavy footsteps coming closer. The door creaked open, and a bearded man poked his head out. "Jack, can't this wait until morning?" "No!" Jack nodded at Kodiak. "This dog's in trouble." Beryl sighed and opened the door wide. "It's always dogs with you. Bring him inside. I'll take care of your team." While Beryl went to secure Jack's sled dogs, Jack carefully laid Kodiak down on a table. Shelves filled with jars and bottles covered the room. "Beryl's a healer," Jack explained quietly. "I can handle some injuries. But if that wolf had a disease, Kodiak might need more help." "Thank you for everything," I told Jack. "I don't know how to repay you," Jack shrugged. "No need. I don't like many people, but I do like dogs." "Same here." I scratched Kodiak's chin, and he wagged his tail weakly. "Dogs don't talk back or judge." Jack ran his hand along Kodiak's back. "That's always a nice thing?" Then Beryl returned. "How did you convince any girl to stay with you longer than 3 seconds?" I stood straighter, not liking how Beryl spoke about mages. "For your information, the law that banned mages from being alone with non-mages was lifted 10 years ago, so neither of us was doing anything wrong. Jack has been a perfect gentleman. Mages are no different from anyone else, and there's even a bill being considered that—" I stopped, confused when I saw both men laughing. "Relax, lass," Beryl said, still chuckling. "I was just teasing. Jack's an old friend." It's rare to find someone who fights for mage rights like he does. I sighed with relief, glad I didn't have to explain mage rights again. Kodiak whimpered, and we all gathered around him. Beryl's face grew serious as he checked Kodiak's injury. "Tell me what happened." I explained the wolf attack, and Beryl listened carefully, dabbing a pale pink salve on Kodiak's wound. "That will numb it," he said, "so he won't feel the pain." "Now, why were you out so late on a deserted road? Were you hoping to be eaten alive?" "I was separated from my stepmother and stepsisters." "Where are they?" Beryl asked. "Should I send for them?" I let out a bitter laugh. "No, they left me behind." Jack looked sharply at me. "They abandoned you?" "Pretty much. They assumed I'd go back home." "Why didn't you?" I didn't answer, not wanting to admit that my stubbornness almost got me and Kodiak killed. I didn't want to go back to the village, either, since it was just as dangerous. Trying to avoid the question, I changed the topic. "I'll pay for everything you've done, but I need to go back home." "No need. Watching you defend an old, grouchy mage was enough of a reward." "You're going to go out of business if you keep offering free services," Jack told him. "I'll make sure you're paid." "I'll make sure I pay you," I said firmly. It was known that mages were paid poorly, and I couldn't let Jack pay for everything. This was my dog, not his. Beryl winked at me as he placed a paste in Kodiak's mouth. It isn't every day a lady will defend a grumpy old sorcerer. "I'm sure Jack wouldn't mind getting to know you better." Jack didn't change his serious face. "I can't get to know any woman like that, Beryl, and you know it. Not all laws are as advanced as Noelle here. Laws can change." "Don't you need to tell her about her dog?" Jack asked, raising an eyebrow. "Not as much as I need to tell her about you," Beryl said with a mischievous smile. Then he turned to me. "Your dog will be fine. He'll need rest for a day or two, then you can pick him up. But be careful, there might be another sly dog around." Jack rolled his eyes. "I think it's time to go. Noelle has business at the castle." Beryl leaned back, looking at me. "Oh, that's right. My daughter Peggy was wishing she were old enough to run off to the ball. How old is she? I asked, gently stroking Kodiak's head. He had closed his eyes, either to rest or from the medicine, though I wasn't sure. Beryl laughed loudly. She's 9. She's got a long way to go before she thinks about marriage and things like that. It isn't a competition, Jack said. It's a week of balls and activities to help the prince. Yeah, I know. But it's a competition anyway, even if the royals pretend it's not, Beryl said, rolling his eyes. They promise a rich prince, and all the women come running. Personally, I think it's a bit silly. Silly? I groaned. That's awful. See, Beryl? Jack said, triumphant. I told you your jokes were bad. Noelle agrees with me. Noelle's off to compete. Isn't she? Beryl said with a laugh. I think she's hoping it'll be her big moment. Beryl laughed so hard that he nearly knocked over a bottle. Oh, come on, Jack. That was funny. You too serious to laugh? I have a sense of humor, Jack protested. And that's no joke, I said, trying to keep a straight face. Jack's lips twitched, almost breaking into a smile. You'll laugh at her jokes, but not mine? I see how it is. Beryl looked at me and Jack, who was carefully lifting Kodiak. Interesting. I'll leave you two alone. See you soon.